there was a time there where I was like, God, I can't talk to you.
Yes.
I'm mad. You allowed this to happen and I can't, and so I had my time, but then I had to get to the point where I was like, you know what, Amaryllis, you don't know the bigger picture.
We know.
You are not God.
Yeah.
And I can't even begin to dare to say that this was one thing or the other. It's how I feel. It feels a certain way, but I don't know the bigger picture. And so that has allowed me to continue to believe that God is good and that he's going to walk me through this, and that all I need to do is trust him along the way.
Hey, guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey, guys, how are you today? I have a very, very special couple on as guests today. I have Clint Hatton and Amaryllis Hatton on as two people who are very dear to my heart. If you may remember, I had Clint on a while back. He shared his incredible story regarding losing his 17-year-old son in a tragic plane accident. And his life story is incredible. It just fills us with the understanding that we are overcomers and that life is meant to be triumphed over. So I invited Clint's wife to come on because she is a force to be reckoned with. This beautiful soul will share with you today about her journey of recovery. And one of the main reasons I wanted them both on is because I want everyone to understand that life doesn't have to end if something tragic like this happens, and marriage doesn't have to fall apart. And these guys are beacons of light. I also want to share, I'm going to give you a little bio on both of them because they're just such incredible people. I want you to hear more about them. Amaryllis is a globally recognized, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. It's called Satchi artist. Her work was recently featured at the Other Art Fair in Dallas, Texas. She has a curious mind that is in endless pursuit of the complex beauty in the world around us. Her works are not simply a piece of art or an expression. She believes in the transformational power of a word fitly spoken and inspired by the Creator. And so she takes time to listen, and she uniquely dedicates each piece of art with words that release healing, cause change, and inspire whoever the recipient is of this art to embrace this distinctive value that you have brought to this planet. And this is how she approaches every canvas. Her works are truly life-giving showpieces. They're just incredible. I've seen them. They're just amazing. Her pieces inspire viewers to reflect about the deeper meaning of life, but they also greatly encourage and comfort in a unique way. Amaryllis receives great joy in connecting with others through her art and loves to engage courageous people that value genuine, authentic relationships. And she loves to have fun. When she's not in front of the canvas wearing her signature paint-covered overalls, she can be found wearing sassy heels, dancing with her husband, Clint, eating street tacos with her two handsome boys, and delineating truth with Puerto Rican zeal. Truth, art, and family are her passions. I love this. The thing about Clint, you guys will, and I'm going to ask you to head over to the episode with Clint on it because he tells a gripping story that begins with a life of all sorts of tragedy and triumph and repeated climbs out of dark times. But in his description of himself, he always describes himself as being deliriously happily married for 20 years to his beautiful bride, Amaryllis, and dad to three amazing boys, Gabriel, Joel and Liam. They are his greatest joy and inspiration. Clint is the founder of Big, Bold, Brave and author of the book, Big, Bold, Brave, How to Live Courageously and in a Risky World. And this was inspired by the life of his oldest son, Gabriel. He became a pilot at 17 years old, soloed at only 16, and passed away in a tragic crash in 2019, just shy of this beautiful boy's 18th birthday. While living his dream, that is a tragic story that Clint has managed to make incredible, incredible triumph over. In his book, he shares mindsets, insights, values, and character traits that have empowered him and his family through their greatest personal loss. And he just keeps giving this life-giving experience. He looks at Gabriel as big, bold, and brave. It represents how they see their son. He has had the privilege and honor to give talks, train leaders, host events, and MC fundraisers for thousands of people over the last 20 years in the United States and abroad. He has a track record of creating energy, delivering dynamic content, and empowering audiences to transform their lives immediately. I have discovered that even though it is impossible to know when or how hard adversity will hit, there are foundational mindsets, values, and character traits that empower humans to recover from even the most devastating blows and thrive again. Clint, this is how he puts it, I've employed these in my personal and professional life, so I don't just teach PowerPoints from theory, but with the authority through personally tested life applications. Every human being will face challenges in life, relationships, business, and personally. So without any further ado, I am going to invite Clint and Amaryllis to come on and share parts of their story and also share the ways in which they have come together as a married couple, how Amaryllis has turned her pain into incredible beauty and into understanding suffering and being able to bring healing to others, and how Clint has taken the empowerment and the courageous acts of his son and how bold and brave he was as a young man. And he's taken those character traits and built a beautiful platform for us to enjoy. So I look forward to you receiving all that you can. Remember, this will be a gripping and painful story to hear, but it is also a story that shows you that there's always hope. And I hope that that is what you take away from this. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. As I was saying in the bio, I have Clint and Amaryllis today on my podcast. And what it is about having them, I'm just going to gush over them for just a minute, is that they are two people who have demonstrated so much triumph, but with grace and with seeming, I don't want to say ease, but it looks like ease because of the way that you carry yourselves through the difficulties that you've been in. So what I shared with the listeners before is that Clint had been on the podcast originally alone, and his story is so gripping. It is so moving. Not just because, we hear all different really tragic kinds of stories, and this is a tragic story, but the way that Clint and Amaryllis have managed to continue to overcome this tragedy that hit their family is just a light in a pretty dark world. So that was the main reason that I had Clint on, but then I realized they are so happily married, and I think about, just as a therapist, how many different marriages fall apart in the face of a really severe tragedy, especially a loss of a child. And it's almost like people expect it to happen. And I wanted you guys to come on because I think you can be a beacon of hope for people to know that they can overcome and they can stay married. And I think there's just sometimes too much pain to go around and no one to comfort. So, yeah, just that with that kind of kind of dark introduction. What I want to say is is that what you guys are going to get from sitting here with Clint and with Amaryllis is you're going to get light, you're going to get hope, you're going to get inspiration, and you're going to also cry because as they walk you through their difficulty, they're also going to show you that there's incredible growth and light in the whole process. So I would love to hear. I just want to welcome you first. Thank you so much for coming back. And should I tell the people what happened? Or
Sure.
should we share with the people? Okay, so listen, guys, this is what happened. I had this couple on right here, and we were crying. We had like a double podcast. It was insane. We talked about the most difficult and just unbelievable things. And guess what? I lost all the content and I struggled to get it back and I couldn't get it. So now they're back again.
Oh,
so here we are. So I want to welcome you and thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having
We're
us.
grateful to be back with you. Yeah. We just get to do it again. And the story's still the same. So it's all good.
But different things may come out.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And it will be. So what I would love to hear from you, Amaryllis, I've had Clint share the story actually of his whole life, but I would love for you to be able to share, the backstory and how you've come to where you are today.
Sure. That seems like a big question. So I'll try to nutshell
it
for you.
Yes.
Well, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, moved to Florida when I was about 12, or actually had just turned 13, which is kind of a pivotal time in a lot of people's lives. We moved because there were some issues with my family and wanted to start afresh, and so moved to Florida. And then in 1999, my mom was transferred here to Texas with a ministry that she worked with. And so I decided to just come with her. My parents were going through a divorce. And so I ended up coming to Texas with my mom in 99, which is the same year that he moved here from California. Okay. So that's interesting. We both ended up in the same state in the same year, didn't meet each other for about a year or so later. So then I moved here in 99. We met a couple of years later. He got hired onto my department at the ministry that I was working in. And we met there and started a friendship after that, and so much involved in that situation. So our relationship started out with a lot of challenges and a lot of situations that really grew us to the point that I feel like have strengthened some muscles in our heart and in our mind that we've been able to walk through some other situations throughout our lives because of, so our relationship didn't start so easy, and we can, go into that too, but got married in 2003 after a lot of things. What?
I want everyone to notice that she looked at me to make sure the date was right.
I was going to ask you, is that correct? Like 2003?
Right. She's right.
What I was actually going to do is ask you guys, because I know we're going to get into some deep waters, but then I'm thinking, okay, these early challenges that set the stage for being able to handle bigger challenges, build muscles. Mm-hmm. You built some muscles then. If you don't want to go in detail, you don't have to, but what kind of challenges did you start off with in your relationship? You're dying that I'm asking. It's just oh yeah, this, and this happened. Right, and I did this. Yeah.
No, actually I did more.
You did more? Did you do some bad stuff?
Well, and this kind of ties up. I don't even know if we got into this before when we spoke to you the last time, but part of the situation with my family was, for me, what it caused in me, I'll stick to that part. What it caused in me was a broken heart as a little girl. So what it did for me is I looked for love in all the wrong places, and so I was dating and, doing all these things. And I felt like my fulfillment came from relationships or, just boys being attracted to me. And so in 2001, I went on a trip overseas. we knew each other and we had kind of started a friendship, but it wasn't, it wasn't super intense. We weren't dating or anything like that. So I went on a trip overseas with a girlfriend of mine, and I ended up meeting a guy while I was away. I had a week-long fling with him, and I came home and I was pregnant. And so, I was, good little Christian girl that worked at a ministry, served in her church, and all these things. But I had this hole in my heart, and so I was making all these decisions that, from that place. And so when I came back, I waited about 3 months to even go to the doctor because of all those situations, all the external things that I was thinking, I'm going to get excommunicated because now I'm the girl with the scarlet letter. And, and and I even thought, do I have an abortion? What do I do here? But my heart, I knew that wasn't the right decision, for me. And so I decided that I was just going to face whatever I needed to face with whoever I needed to face it with. And that I had to trust that God was going to carry me through this, and so, but I was broken, through all of it. And so I was getting ready to enter probably the most life-changing experience of my life as far as who I was and my relationship with the Lord and just the stability in my identity. But I was going to have a lot of challenges along the way and go through major roller coaster emotionally. One, because I'm pregnant, and two, because I'm, you're trying to figure things out. And so it's not always a straight, smooth road. And so I decided that I was going to go ahead and face my job, which was, again, a ministry that I worked with that I had grown up in, and the reason why I moved to Texas. So these people were very involved in my life for a long time. So I had all the hard conversations, and I, one thing after another, and there was divine intervention in a lot of different ways. And so I did not end up losing my job, which was a miracle. So I made the decisions, the hard decisions, to have these conversations with these people, to let them know, hey, I made this decision and I'm pregnant and it's going to show, and I'm willing to leave if I need to, whatever I need to do. And so, and then for us, I waited 3 months. So during those 3 months, we had actually gotten a little bit closer when I came back from my trip, but I'm a mess, at this point. And so I remember sitting in the car with him one day. This was after he had told me that he felt like I was his wife, and that he was, in love with me, and, all these things. And I had told him, I'm not sure how I feel. I don't know. I'm not in the same place you are,
And by the way, I'm pregnant.
Right. Well, yes. So that was part of it. So one day I knew how he felt, and I had feelings for him, but it was just different. And so I remember being in the car with him and telling him, listen, I've got something to tell you, and this is going to change everything. I went on this trip. I had this fling with a guy, while I was gone.
That's where I'll jump in, because there's my side to this whole story too. It's the same story, but it's just, we were going through things.
I was pregnant.
But she was crying and she couldn't get it out. And the part that we need to interject here is that there was a point in time when she was on this trip where I had been praying, and I felt like God had told me that she had actually slept with someone. So I actually said, you slept with somebody. And then she said, that's not all. And that's when she started to let me know that she was pregnant. That part, I had no clue. So it was still a bomb, but that's kind of how it went down.
Wow. So obviously you could, there was a lot of, it wasn't like mad tension in the car, but there was some tension in the car because I had just, told him this, and I figured it would change everything, and I was totally expecting him to go, I can't do this. I'm out, this is not what I signed up for, and so to my surprise, and I know what was happening in this moment, but to my surprise, he looked at me, and he took some time. And of course we were crying, both of us were. And he looked at me and he said, this changes nothing for me. I love you. And if you'll choose me, and if you'll allow me, I will take care of this baby as if it were my own. And, in the moment, I knew that part of what was happening here was God was beginning to heal my heart from the the men wounds that I had.
Yes.
But I wasn't ready to say yes, and let's just do this. And, I needed to go through my own journey and my own process. And so that was, so there was some ups and downs. I put him through I was mean through a lot of it. And, just I'm pregnant, so I'm hormonal, but then I'm also trying to figure things out. And I've got this baby that is, someone else's. And, that situation was never going to be, anything. And he knew about it and decided, just ultimately not to be a part of baby's life. And so that was simple-ish in that way. But I just didn't know, I didn't know what was in store. And so then as time went on, after I had Gabriel, we started our friendship even more and deeper, and ended up getting married when Gabriel was 1.5 years old. And so that was, there's a lot, but I just don't.
Very long 9-month engagement that felt like about 2 years in and of itself. Yeah, because I was ready.
Could we just take a moment here and I want to just be so grateful to God, and just that I have had the opportunity to hear this. And I think maybe it's a little bit of a part why that other previous podcast didn't go forward, because this right here, I knew from the minute you told me that you were pregnant, and I heard all the stuff you were saying about shame. I relate to that so much, being a little girl, not feeling love, wanting love so desperately, getting legitimate needs met in illegitimate ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I was like in the car with you. I felt like a fly in the car when you just described that. And there was nothing inside of me for even a second. I knew what Clint said, and it's just so beautiful, because it's this representation of true love, of, non-accusatory, non-reactive. I get it. It was hard, but I just didn't even for a second think that this man was not loyal to you, even at that point. It's just,
this is a good point to interject something, though, Alison. I appreciate all that, because I do come off sound like the hero in this thing. And, obviously I was true to my convictions and could have chosen different paths, but, she was not exaggerating. She was up and down and nice and mean, and, put me through some stuff. Yes. Her mom wanted me to have nothing to do with her in her life, even though she didn't really know me. There's a whole other story to that. We became, best friends after that. So me and her mom have had a relationship for a long time. But what I want to interject there is, there came a point in time where my heart was so heavy with rejection from her, and just feeling like, even though I felt like God had told me this is supposed to be your bride, it still takes two to tango, right? And so there came a point in time where I got tired and fatigued, and I started to date this other girl that was in my apartment complex for about 2 weeks. And then one night I don't even think I was like, in like a formal prayer or anything, but I just heard the Lord ask me, "What are you doing?" And I knew what he meant. And so I don't know if you're the same way, but I usually try to like see if he really knows. So I said something like,
"Could you clarify?"
He's like, "What are you doing?" And I knew what he meant,
Just watching TV.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny, because I believe this is how the Lord is. I didn't hear him say to me, "You need to break up with this other girl." What he said to me was, "I already have shown you my best. If you want to continue, I'll bless you, but it's not my best." And that night I picked up the phone. We weren't even talking during that particular time at all. And I picked up the phone, and I cut that relationship off. And, just at that point, I just trusted that whatever that meant, whatever the Lord was going to do, that, he knew better than I did. And then it wasn't too much longer after that, she ended up reaching out, and we had some conversations again. And obviously everybody knows now where that landed. But so, it wasn't like it was this smooth, seamless thing for me, and I was just this great hero who never faltered. I got tired too, but at the end of the day, I believed and trusted that God had something better for me. and I wanted it to be her. So I just trusted in that. And ultimately, that's what happened.
You overcame a lot.
Yes. And that was kind of the foundation, for our relationship. And so I think, for us having gone through that part of our, journey, strengthen some muscles to then help us go through a lot of other things that we've gone through, in our lives with the boys, just as parents and ministry, just in life and our relationship, with each other, things with family, and all those things that, we've decided, if we were able to communicate really well in the beginning, even though there was, it was a roller coaster of emotions. I don't feel like I ever lied to him. I was very honest with him throughout the whole thing. And he, in turn with me, without hurting each other, because we're always aware of, just conscious of the fact that we wanted to be honest, but not injure each other with our true feelings, as some people tend to do. They're like, oh, I'm just being real, but really you're injuring each other because you're not, you don't have a filter. That's love, if you don't love the other person, or if you love the other person, you're not going to throw arrows at them. So that was one thing that, was part of our foundation throughout the years that really has helped us. In my family, I've never seen a man that has truly loved and honored and been faithful to his wife. And so I didn't think that was possible for me, and so when we sat in the car that day and then moving forward, one of the things that God began to show me was, you are absolutely worthy of that. And I'm going to give that to you.
Wow.
Which is a major gift, to me, because it's unusual still in my family and in my culture in general. So just, I guess the worthiness, just being worthy of being accepted and loved. Yeah, that's probably the strongest. I mean, I'm sure there's more, as I go
It's
along.
a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
To obtain, I think,
Well, I think that's a foundational thing, to so many others, because if you don't feel worthy, you're not able to accept what comes your way really fully, whether it's a blessing or a challenge, and when it's a challenge, feel like I've got what it takes to push through this because I'm worthy. We equate our past with our future, right? We say, well, this is what I've done or what's happened to me. And so therefore it's my future, and I 100% disagree with that. Your past is not your future. And I think your past gives you weapons for your future. Like the things that you've overcome in your past give you a weapon that you can use to forge to do great things in your future and to empower others to do the same, too. I think that's a key thing that a lot of us are missing and that are not receiving. But I really believe that. I think that's a core thing for me.
Yeah. Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book. And then I realized, how is that right? To keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it.
I really felt like that was the hardest thing we're ever going to go through was, just getting to that point of being married and walking this thing out together. And little did I know that every step and every, challenge along the way was something that would ultimately prepare us for our worst nightmare.
Yeah. So, and now, we're approaching to this unbelievable, tragic story, what happened in your lives. I mean, do you guys feel it's never easy to share. I understand, but, you feel ready? I'm curious just because, I've heard Clint tell the story and his perspective and the waiting and, all of that. And then probably hearing from you, Amaryllis, I'm sure, everything's it's like a prism, you see in all different ways. So do you feel how do you feel about telling this story? Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously we have 3 boys. Gabriel was the first one, Joel, our middle son, and then Liam, our baby, who's 14 now. And in 2019, September of 2019, our oldest son, Gabriel, who had become a pilot earlier that year, officially had his pilot's license before he had his driver's license. No, he started flying planes. He soloed and started flying planes before he drove a car. So that's stuff. But that's just how he was. He was just unique, loved the sky, and fell in love with it when he was a young boy, around 12 or 13. And that's what he wanted to do, whether as a career or just for fun. But he decided that he wanted to do it as a career as time went on. So he got his pilot's license in January of 2019 and was working towards getting all the rest of, all the certificates that they need and all the other levels. So he had, was getting as many hours on a plane as he possibly could. And so he had taken a friend of his to Arkansas back to school, and he was flying back home, and it was at night on the 23rd. And he hit some unexpected weather, and he crashed his plane and lost his life. Obviously, we didn't, know all the details on my end. That night around 8:30, I get a phone call from his mentor who had been tracking him on his plane, the tracker that they have. And I had also, but my tracker was not as intense as his. It's not as accurate. And so he had called me and said, I've been tracking Gabriel. I lost him. It looked like he elevated, came down, whatever. And so I'm like, okay, don't panic. It's concerning, but don't panic. He's, surely he's fine, because this is not our lives. This is not a story that we're going to live. It's not my story, And I told him, he gets on the phone, we're putting our boys to bed, and so it's just, this kind of a whirlwind moment. But then, just for hours throughout the night, we're waiting to hear back from the police in Arkansas, or Kevin, his mentor, or anything. We just want to know, what's going on. And the details are not super specific in my brain, because that was, the worst night I've ever had. And so some of the details are off. All I remember is I just need to breathe. I just need to remember to breathe. Just keep breathing, keep praying, and keep believing that you're going to see your boy, soon. That didn't happen, the time, I don't know, it was late at night. We heard something from the news. There was an accident and there was a plane crash, in that area. And so we knew.
I'll jump in for just a second and give her a chance
Yeah.
to. It was just a confusing night, Allison, because the search and rescue team, it was a very rural area and a little bit mountainous. So there was no cell phone coverage, supposedly. So I had called 2 or 3 times throughout the night. They kept saying, there's nothing to tell. There's nothing to tell. Meanwhile, myself and her mother, actually, who lives close by, were tracking news stations on our phones, and they're slowly leaking information. And to the point where about, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on the door, which, it's like, are you got to be kidding me? I go to the door and it's 2 police officers, local police officers that are, fully dressed. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is exactly what you see in a movie, And so I stepped outside because, like she said, we had put our other 2 boys down. They were sleeping through all this. And it turned out they didn't know anything either. They were there to get my contact information, which I'd already talked to the search and rescue twice and verified that. So it was just confusing, frustrating, the whole 9 yards. And not long after that, I looked at my phone and they were reporting a single fatality. And so, I didn't know what to do. And there's other parts of the earlier part of the day that we won't get into just because this will go on for 2 weeks if we keep talking. But I just knew in that moment, oh my God, this is it. This is real, And so I turned to her and I don't remember. I know I said something like, maybe. And so, we went through what you can imagine. And then not long after that, I called the sheriff's department again. They say, well, we don't know where they're getting that report. That is not official news. And so it was just, it was truly just our worst nightmare. And then I'll bounce it back to her. At 3:30 in the morning, we got a call and they gave us official word. And it turned out they had found him at like 11 o'clock and they knew he was gone. They were waiting for a coroner to get on site to officially sign off of it before they said anything, is really what had happened throughout the whole night. And so, at that point, 3:30 in the morning, we knew for sure that he was gone. And then by then her mom and my father-in-law were here. And like she said, we were just trying to breathe and figure out not only how do we process, but in about 4 hours, our sons are going to get up. Then what,
Yeah. So, then at this point, that's really it. You go, okay, how do we do this? What do we do now?
Right.
How do you survive something like this? You're not supposed to lose your son, right? You're not, it's not the natural way of life was supposed to be. And so our boys, wake up in the morning and we have to tell them, so we sit him on the couch and just, told him Gabriel had an accident on his plane last night and he didn't make it. And of course, they have very strong emotions, towards it, especially Joel, our middle son. He and Gabriel had, brothers, usually, especially they're only 3 years apart. So they had, kind of a little bit of a rough relationship for a while, but they had just recently started to be really good friends and have a really good relationship. So it really hit him really hard. He just, he couldn't believe it. He was mad. And then Liam, was little, but he obviously has emotions too. So he was crying and just, they didn't understand, how can this be? We don't understand this. And so, as a family, and, Clint led this, and we're so glad. We talked a little bit before they woke up. We just decided, okay, boys, this is the hardest thing we've ever had to face. But as a family, we're going to choose to honor the way Gabriel lived his life, and not this accident, not the way he died, but the way he lived. And he lived his life grabbing it by the horns and did what whatever he said he was going to do, and nothing held him back, and just bulldozed it, and so we were like, this is what our story is going to be. We have to do this to honor his life and to honor our family. So that was the beginning of, kind of setting our family on this course, at least what we thought was the right thing to do.
Yes. One of the things I think about anniversaries is that the day that you lived through on September 22nd, I think you said 23rd, that day, it happened that day, but every other September 22nd isn't the same day. It's just it's a marker. Yeah. And I just, I sometimes think about, thank God that we got through that one particular day. Like you don't feel like you ever could, right? Because you can't get away from yourself. So what happened with you guys going, like, how did you get here? Because I know it still hurts. Yeah.
I was going to say another thing that we told our boys that morning was every emotion is okay. Yeah. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're mad at God. I don't care if you're mad at the world. I don't care if you want to cuss. I don't care what the emotion is. Everything is okay and everything's on the table. But the one thing that's not okay is dealing with it on your own.
Yeah.
So we're a family. So whenever you're feeling anything, let's do it together. I promise you that I'll do that. And we did the same thing with the boys. We promise you we'll do this. You promise us that you'll do that, as well. And that's, that really that's been key. Those two things really have been key, for us.
We're coming up on the 5th year anniversary of that. And I want to make it clear to anybody that's listening here, when we talk about successfully navigating the situation, we talk about our marriage still thriving, those things, that is not the same thing as saying that the pain is gone. The pain is still there. And we expect, because, it represents the love that we share, right? That the pain part is never going to go away. But in this process of, grieving out loud and allowing each other to go through things and asking each other, I call them courageous conversations now, where, one of the things we would do is, you may be at the end of the day, we tend to download, we talk throughout the day, but we tend to download more at night, with each other. The kids are in bed. And so I remember one of the toughest things we had to learn how to do was, maybe we both looked like we were doing pretty good that day. But as you know, looks can be deceiving, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people that have buried the deepest pain are the ones who look like they're, doing great, So we'd sometimes just ask, and we just had our own little phrase for it. It was just, how you doing with Gabriel? And sometimes it was like, I'm doing good today. And then sometimes it immediately shifted the mood, and because it went in both directions. Yeah. One of us would begin to break down. It was just a really hard thing. And so the courageous side of that is you have to be willing to process whatever emotions are in play between the two of you, not like you're independent beings, even though you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What suggestion would you give somebody who's facing this? I know I felt like you can't get away, like you want to get away from yourself, and you want to shake, like, no, this didn't happen. Like, it's almost like you want to stop the reality, right? What would you say to someone in that who's experiencing that, or even a weekend, or they just...
I think for me, one of the ways that I like to describe that is, there's always this, especially when you have a trigger or a moment, there's this black hole that's right there waiting for you to just jump right in the trauma, in the hurt and the pain. Just jump right in and go for it. Just get in there and really dig in. But that hole is very difficult to get out of. And some people can't ever find a way out, with a tragedy like this. So, one of the things for me that's been key is finding gratefulness in it. Yeah. And so, the thing that we've both done this, is, God, thank you that you gave me 17, almost 18 years with Gabriel. Yes. And I have all these memories and all these experiences with him. It doesn't take away the fact that I wanted more, and that I wish I could see, more from his life. But I'm so grateful that I did get that time with him. And that has helped kept me from jumping into that hole over and over and over and over again. So, to me, thankfulness and gratefulness, whatever it is that you can find to grasp onto, to be grateful for, shifts your emotions.
The gratitude factor is real, and I know that's with a lot of the stuff that we're doing with coaching and that industry, it's a very popular thing,
Yeah.
but it's true.
It's real.
It's true.
We didn't have control of his body.
Yeah.
The NTSB took control of that. And I don't know if I've shared this on our interview, and I'll give the condensed version, but one day the doorbell rang a few weeks after he had passed, and I answer it, and it's the FedEx guy. And there's this box, and I look down, and it's got the biohazard, and it says cremated remains. That was a devastating moment. And, I brought it in. We were both here. We wept hard. She went into the other room. And Alison, that was still to this day the one singular time where I truly felt like there was a black cloud that was descending on me that I could actually feel. And I knew whatever this was, I felt like it was like the enemy in my soul.
Yes.
Would take me down for good right now.
Yes.
And ultimately, how that played out was I just raised my hands and I began to worship, because that's just how I worship.
Yes.
I just began to do that for just a moment. And then I began to, be grateful. I began to say some of the stuff she just said, specifically some of the moments that I had, and that I had it, now you guys all know our story, how that all came together, that I even had the opportunity to be his father all those years,
Yes.
and it's a powerful force.
It really, I got to tell you, if there's even just one person in that darkest moment who hears this, it's worth it to me, because one thing like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about is that people can have one long emotional response and it lasts their entire life. It becomes their identity. And you just mentioned that, Amaryllis. And it's like, I feel like there is something about being sure that you don't allow that to happen to you, because it is so compelling to be a victim. It is so compelling to get the comfort from others. And I think one of the things I do, it sounds silly, and we kid around here at work. I say, I'm about to take out my victim card, and then I'm going to put it away in 5 minutes. Here it is. That's my card. I'm using it now.
Oh,
then I'm like, okay, I'm putting my victim card back, because it's like, everything after I am identifies us, and I think that I've seen, just working with widows groups, that people fall into this identity. I am a widow, I have, I've lost a child. These things are become everything.
Those situations will cripple you and
Yes.
completely keep you from living your life if you let them, and it as a mom or a parent, it trickles onto your kids. And
yes.
too, for us, it was really difficult to get on an airplane,
Oh my God. Yes.
And I remember, oh, the first flight that we took after Gabriel's accident, we're walking through the DFW airport, and all of a sudden, this young, dark-haired, tall, skinny pilot walks right by me, and it took my breath away. And he was an American Airlines pilot, which is what Gabriel was on a path to doing. And I just was like, oh my God, again, it took a gasp, and it took the breath away from me, because I'm like, all of a sudden, I see Gabriel,
Yeah.
But then it's like, no, he's not even here, and I'm getting ready to get on a plane, and so it's, so you have to just make those decisions that, you're taking control, that the pain and trauma is not going to take control, right? And
dictate you're going to live.
Yeah, it's not that you're not a victim. Like you said, I'm not going to be a victim to this tragedy. Yes, it hurt. I mean, it's going to affect me for the rest of my life, but that doesn't mean that the effect of this thing has to have a grip on my heart and on my mind forever and keep me from living as well. and then
Yes.
keep me from, giving my best to the people that are around me, because that does a disservice to who you are and why you're here on this earth, And so, the same thing with us. And we've had to, encourage our boys the same way, and
Leaving on that trip, I'll point out our middle son, Joel, who was 14, 15 at that time when we took that trip, he did not want to get on that plane. And
he still has a little bit of our
and he still, he does it. He still gets a little uneasy. Heck, even sometimes I think about it a little bit. I'm be honest about that. But we knew it. We had to do it. We had to do it.
Yes.
Had to do it, or our lives again were going to be muted, in a way that we didn't want to allow that,
Yeah.
The one thing I want to add, I felt like you segued into it really well, and it matches what she was saying too, is talking about him too. One of the things that I've seen, as you know, I've done a lot of podcast interviews, and many of those have been with grieving families, someone who started a podcast because of that reason or whatever. And then just because our story is what it is, people reach out to us. And one of the things that happens that and we know is when you lose someone, and I don't know if it's worse because it's a tragedy or not, but people don't know what to say. They stop asking you questions. They don't want to talk about it because they're afraid of how you're going to feel. And
some get uncomfortable when you bring up
and I
their
think,
name.
and I think for some people, it just touches a deep rooted fear in them that they don't know how to deal with. That's what I think is actually happening. But I'm bringing this one up because I'm hoping people listening to this really catch what I'm saying. I really have not met yet someone who lost someone that has processed it in a healthier way, in the different ways that we've both described, that doesn't want to talk about their loved one, and that is eager to not you're running around like just I got to tell a story, got to tell a story. But when somebody says one of the things for us is, so how many kids do you have?
Yeah.
How do you answer that now? That was a tough one to figure out, for me. And I just finally got in the habit. I'm like, well, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then we may or may not even get into it.
Yep.
Because I still have Gabriel, still have a son,
You do.
But sometimes that launches into a deeper question and then I answer it. But the reality of it is I think talking about that loved one and the good times, and he was a knucklehead too.
Of course.
Some of those things we have the biggest laughs as a family about.
Yes.
So I do believe that that's a huge part of grieving in a healthy way, and just keeping the right perspective.
And, I think we touched on this, just the idea on the podcast that wasn't, but like the idea that like people will go away because they don't know how to deal with you, when you lose someone. And, I think we discussed this. I think Clint and I talked about like, it's almost like because people are so afraid of a tragedy or so afraid of loss and death that they want to blame. There needs to almost like be like, there's a reason that this happened that makes it not touch me.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody's fault so that it couldn't be me that this happens to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And right.
I think that's why a lot of people can't get past something like this, especially when it comes to God, because he's the easy target, right? And so, that's been hard for a lot of people, is that, we've been able to continue our relationship with the Lord along the way, even though, I had there was a time there where I was like, God, I can't talk to you. I'm mad. You allowed this to happen. And I can't, and so I had my time, but then I had to get to the point where I was like, you know what, Amaryllis, you don't know the bigger picture. You are not God.
Right.
You didn't create the ocean and the mountains and the sky, and you had nothing to do with any of that. So how dare you think that you know or have any idea of what actually is happening in the bigger picture? Yes, this hurts. Yes, this sucks. Yes, this situation was horrible and it hurts me at a deep place, but I'm not God. And I can't even begin to dare to say that this was one thing or the other. It's how I feel. It feels a certain way, but I don't know the bigger picture. And so that has allowed me to continue to believe that God is good and that he's going to walk me through this, and that all I need to do is trust him along the way. And he's going to help me, and it's going to be okay. And we're going to, we're going to walk through this together.
I want to respect your time. And I know that our time is up, but and everything that you guys are, the work that you're doing, Clint, it's all going to be in the show notes. But if you could also just share, about your book and about what you guys are doing so that people could find you, I think that would be really great, before we close. And if there's anything important that you feel like you just want to say to someone who's having a hard time, that would be great too. If not, we've said a lot.
I know that I'm not unique and that I'm not special in the fact that God's not a respecter of persons. And so if he gave me and is continuing to give us the grace to walk through this, that he will do the same for you if you're willing and if you want it.
I would just add to that, there's going to be people that maybe are watching this that they've went through that really difficult tragedy, or maybe even, a series of losses, and they feel like I haven't walked things out this way. And I just want you to know it can change today. It can change today. We had foundational things that helped us. We talked about that. I understand that, but just making that decision today that, I'm going to start living life differently. I'm going to start seeing things differently. And you're going to need some help. You may need to reach out to Alison or someone. Maybe it's someone or a coach or a pastor or whatever it is. You're probably going to need to have somebody in that journey with you, but you need to know that you can turn it around and you can begin to live life the way you intended to live. It's never too late. It's never too late. The best way to connect with us, for me, it's going to my website, which is bigboldbrave.us. And there you can see I do keynote speaking. And I also been doing a lot of work with a company called Excellent Cultures, which you can find that there as well. We're a company that's got 37 years of experience of helping CEOs and senior leadership of companies learn how to create a leadership system that will make them in the top 10% of the best cultures in the world. And we have scientific assessments and data and different things. It's a data-driven process. So that's some of the exciting new things that are happening with me right now. And with her,
the book.
And I did write the book. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up again, Alison. You can find that on the website as well. It's just simply Big, Bold, Brave, How to Live Courageously in a Risky World.
Yeah. So my art, I guess the best way would be go to Instagram is probably the best way. And you can get my website through there, but it's art.by.amaryllis, which is AMARILLYS.
Beautiful. I'm so honored to know you guys. I feel like we're friends.
Absolutely.
And I really admire who you are. And you're incredible people. And I'm just so glad that you came back on after I destroyed the podcast of that. I just can't. That's great right there. That's great. Here's a couple of more hours with Alison. All right, here we go. I just thank you so much. It's an honor. And it is a wrap. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe if you could to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.